in a flagrant.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the first Harbor Committee meeting of 2024. I think we have Lily Felt. Is Lily on Zoom?
She texted me, said she wasn't going to make it.
It should be on Zoom. Well, in any event, we have Marianne Eddy. We have Vice Chair John Parker. We have Liz Vale and Doris Alvarez. And Brant Heiner in his new year's outfit. Looks very good, Brant. Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
So I guess the first thing, we are going to dispense with minutes, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Maybe we put it over at the end, so I haven't read them, I'm sorry. And
Comments and questions, we open to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to opine on anything?
I have a question.
Come stand up and introduce yourself.
My name is Paula Wagner and I live at 74 Glover Street. And I'm wondering, are these comments for the issues, the projects that you're going to discuss?
No, when that comes up, you can,
Yeah,
and it'll come up very quickly.
okay, all right.
Thank you for being here.
I'm sorry, I don't have the minutes from December 7th. Were they sent out to me
We've
or?
already decided to put them off, Marianne. No, we're not gonna do them tonight.
Not gonna do it tonight.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Things happen.
before I got here. Okay.
Any other comments? Is there anybody in the Zoom sphere that would like to comment? Okay. All right, then I think we can close the public session unless, is anybody in the audience would like to speak up?
Will you be on Zoom or?
Zoom's hot, okay. We have correspondence requiring some action, 64 Germain. I think Mr. Downs is here.
Yes, and Mr. Silverstein's also here.
Hello.
Greetings.
Good evening. So at the last time we were on, your question, or the question that came from Nelson Pope and Voorhees was, has the wetlands moved closer to the building site? And the answer is no. You have a new survey that we had done, and there's two reasons why. Number one, the wetlands did not move at all. It stayed stationary where it is on the adjoining lot. And we removed one of the amenities, which was a clubhouse and a public, not a public, but a pool for the units. And we're down from 4 to 3 because of health department requirements. We kept the parking at the same amount that we needed for 4, so there would be overflow parking, and everything else is the same. We just need to renew the permit in order to get our health department stamp.
Seems like a bad idea.
So didn't Brant want to see his, okay.
So Dennis, thank you for coming back. The problem I think that I'm still grappling with here is the survey that was provided to us in December continues to note on the plan that the site plan to be revised for 3 units total. And as I expressed to the board, this is more just a housekeeping item. Just is the site.
Yeah, that's the surveyor's error. He should have changed 4 to 3.
No. Sorry, guys. I need to interject here. On the 13th, we had dropped off the revised plans as you requested, Brant, with Doris. I can't share them on my screen, but the board members in person should have it. I'd be happy to share it.
I don't have that, so.
Yeah, Brant, the building stays the same. It's just that there's gonna be 3 units in it instead of 4 units.
But we submitted that. Doris can confirm, we confirmed with her today that she had the correct updated surveys.
We have the updated surveys and the members have
May I share my screen for the remote board members?
That would be helpful if you could, David. Thank you.
It says a host disabled participant screen sharing.
give me 1 minute.
Oh, there we go.
Right, so there's now one.
Can you see that okay, Brent?
Yep. Can you just scroll down to the bottom panel? Yeah, so the note has been removed. So Doris, if you can confirm that we have this in our files, is not in MPV's files, so perhaps it might have just been overlooked and getting sent to us. But that was, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that was my only lingering comment, that we just wanted to make sure the record was clear. And this survey, from what I can see of it, seems to have addressed that issue with regards to the notation being removed from the survey.
That is correct, Brent. We do have the survey on file and do apologize for not.
Okay, so long as we have it, I think we're good, unless any of the members of the board have anything else to offer at this time.
Brant, do you have other observations or comments?
No, as I had said before, the conditions of the permit will remain in place. They're reducing the density on the site. So I feel as though in that capacity, it's an even better application for the board to consider.
Thank you, Brent.
So it's just a renewal of a matter that you've already approved and reduction of density. So I think it's a good application for renewal.
So, Mr. Chairman, all we need is a letter from your board saying that the permit dated such and such has been extended for whatever period of time you're going to give us. I need a copy of that letter in order to send to the health department to get the map. The map is ready to be delivered, subject to that letter.
I'm looking directly at council, who,
I mean, you'll get the letter once they vote on it and Doris types it up,
okay.
right?
All right, so you want a motion?
I have one question. David, I didn't see your last name.
Silverstein?
Greetings. Are you the owner or?
I am, yes.
It's nice to meet you. It's nice to see a face. As pretty as Dennis is, it's nice to see a face that's associated with the project directly. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
It's an interesting project.
And that tree, that when this came by the first time, I don't know if you were the owner?
Yes, the tree doesn't look like it's going anywhere, so I think we're good, and it's nice and healthy.
All right, good, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
So I guess we could make a motion to,
Yeah.
go ahead. Do I
Make
hear
a-
a motion to proceed with approving this project?
Well, what do we want to do, for 2 years?
Yeah.
I make a motion to extend this permit for 2 years from today's date or whenever is appropriate, Doris.
This is not extending, this is because it's already expired, is that correct?
It says renewal. It's a renewal
Yes.
request.
So it's not extending it, it's a renewal.
I'm making a motion to renew this now expired permit for a period of 2 years from today.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So noted. Doris, if you can put together a letter in
I will.
all your free time. Dennis, and
Thank you very much. Appreciate your help.
good luck with the project.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Nice to see it evolving.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Second item is the project at 4 Notre Dame. Is there somebody here for that?
It looks like Lisa's here, Doris, if you can let her in.
Yeah, she is.
And I hope this will be very quick, Will and members of the board. There was a Scrivener's error on both parts. The wetland permit was issued for, the plans are correct, the board approved the correct plans and all of the components of the project. However, when we typed at the permit, we erroneously wrote 51 square foot expansion instead of 251 square foot expansion. So we're simply just asking the board to reapprove the permit with the correct language to recognize 251 square foot expansions, whereas only one was noted in the permit. However, the plans do show 251 square foot expansions.
Right.
It was presented to the board that way, and the board did approve it that way. So, Lisa, is there anything else you need to clarify?
No, just I appreciate it and thank you.
Does the board have any questions?
No,
Okay, so Liz can direct you, but really all I'm asking is that the board signs the updated wetland permit tonight, and then we can close the book on this application.
I guess we make a motion for that.
yeah, I'll try.
You'll try.
Yeah,
Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to update this permit to reflect 2 51-foot expansions, extensions, expansions,
Expansions, yeah.
expansions. To
I'll
the,
second.
All those in favor?
aye.
So noted. So for Notre Dame has got a green light and sign this.
Thank you. I'll take with you as soon as yourself.
Thank you, Lisa.
Great, thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
John. Old business, I understand Pumpkin Partners is
Adjourn.
adjourned for the evening, for the month.
Want a motion to adjourn that until February? I think that's what we do, don't we usually? Yeah.
Okay, do I hear
Make
a motion?
Yeah,
Okay,
make a motion to adjourn Pumpkin Partners until February, what date? What, third?
first, okay.
Make a motion to adjourn this until February 1st.
I'll second. I just want to note that's at the request of the applicant. just so we
Yes,
have
at the request of the applicant.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
that.
So noted. So adjourn until the next meeting. Thank you. You got that, Doris?
Yes.
Thank you. The second item is the application at 62 Joel's Lane for David Burke and Anita Leahy. Who is here?
We have a request from the applicant as well to adjourn the next meeting.
Adjourned.
I think they're in front of the ZBA, right?
Correct.
Right.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn this until next month?
I make a motion to adjourn this until February 1st, at the request of the applicant.
I'll second.
So noted, adjourned until next month.
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Doris, so we just pin that for next month. Moving right along, new business, 100 Glover Street. Okay, do I hear a motion to open this? to
Make
the
a motion
public?
to open the public hearing for 100 Glover
I'll
Street.
second.
So noted, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
We are open to the public.
Good evening, members of the board. Brian Assessor, 2331 Montauk Highway, Bridgehampton, New York, attorney for the applicant. I was here in November as a discussion item for this project with the board. And the board had, some members of this board had previously seen the application as a referral about 2.5, 3 years ago when we were undergoing the subdivision process, at which time a established covenant and restriction file buffer was established on the property pursuant to rules and regulations of the Harbor Committee, which is still active today. The applicant proposed to construct a single-family home on the site that is recently subdivided. Two of the maps were signed to the last planning board, and need additional copies of the maps, so those maps will be signed and instructed and filed. It has we have a planted buffer. We have a setback of no less than 75 feet to any structure. We have a septic system more than 150 feet from the edge of the updated wetlands, which were done in November. We updated that on the survey. So we're back here tonight for our northern lot. The southern lot is going to be a separate application at a different time, which was part of the 2-lot subdivision. This is the northern lot for a single-family house with pool, conforming to all the rules and regulations inside the code.
You're not working very hard, are you?
I mean, we've worked hard for 3
How
years.
nice.
So I hope, like, you know, this is the culmination of 3
Yeah.
years to get here, so.
So is
It
this
should be
what,
easy at this point.
is this Silly Farm?
Yes,
Yeah, the Silly.
correct. The bulk lot was like 63,000 feet, and we subdivided that into 237,000 plus square foot lots in the R20 zoning district. So it conforms in every way, no variance are needed, no relief or alternative is proposed here because we meet all the recommendations inside of the code.
Do you have any pretty pictures?
We do, that's pretty good, of everything. Just a reminder, the access on this lot is just from Glover Street to one driveway. Northern part of the lot on Glover.
Not exactly those artistic photos, but
Gives you an idea.
Right.
Good baseball field, Matt.
yeah,
Wow. You cut down any significant trees?
We're all gone before we started.
Yes, somebody move fast.
There you go.
The lot's been cleared for,
Few years.
I mean, the lot itself of vegetation's been cleared for decades. And the buildings on it that we filed a demolition permit
Right.
for, but
How did,
in terms of clearing otherwise, didn't know it, it hasn't been additionally cleared.
do you have to have a permit to demolish an existing structure?
Yes,
So how did that happen?
we got a permit to demolish this. We went to the ARB for
Yeah.
the demolition permits.
Right, for the demolition?
Yeah.
That I understand, but can you demolish a house without having a permit for new structure?
Yes. The village code does not require you to have a permit for the new structure, to demolish the old structure.
You just have to be
They're
in.
separate. East Hampton Town requires you to have a new permit for a new house to fully demolish an existing house, but Village of Sag Harbor does not.
Wow. If it conforms to all of our setbacks,
Gosh,
what do we have to say here?
We have to pull up
Can we find something wrong here?
covenants already filed. I hope not every 3 years, but it's spent some time.
so this IA system you can drive over?
Yes, traffic barrier.
Yeah, so
You
you know,
can drive over any IA system, it depends on your installation, if you put it, if you encase it with the right traffic barrier rings, and you file a covenant with the Suffolk County Department of Health, they allow you to install it under a driveway with traffic. barrier.
Yeah, so that's what I thought.
yeah, that was an
And
issue.
then I
in Green
brought
Street, I
like
think.
Rich Andover to my house. And we said, we're gonna put the septic under the driveway. He went, oh, no, you're not. Because we're gonna have to go down 30 feet. And if we do that, your foundation is gonna collapse and your neighbor's foundation is gonna collapse.
Why you'd have to go down 30 feet? Because-
Yeah, you don't have to go down, you don't have houses, you're not,
No,
cheek by
even-
jowl.
Yes.
30 is pretty. deep.
That's what the, what do you do? When they go down, they do
Test
the
hole.
test hole, thank you. So we went down 30 feet before they got to the kind of ground that they wanted to put the,
This is a
Leaching
shallow
field.
leaching alley system under the, there's different types of systems depending on vertical or horizontal. This-
Well, you have higher groundwater here.
We do, so that's why it's more of a horizontal system, so that's
Yeah.
what we're using under the driveway surface for the main parts. Which is something I brought up, signed off on, we filed those covenants as well.
there's the test hole.
How difficult was it to do all conforming? Well, I mean, you're not asking for any
It's an
relief.
oversized lot, right, so we're
Right.
almost 1.5, 1.8 times what the lot size, we're 37,000 feet in a 20,000 foot zone, so we almost have 2 times, 1.5 times zoning, so we have enough space to fit everything.
What's the size of the house above ground?
The footprint?
Yeah.
Footprint's
4,100? 4,100
4,100?
with first and second floor.
Yeah, and the third is
It's a
obviously.
story and a half, so some of it's tapered down and we changed the roof lines, to make it look lower, but 4,100 feet over 2, there's no basement because of the FEMA zone, so. There's no basement on this house, it's just first and second
Gotcha.
floor.
And can you tell us about your planting plan?
Just what date planting plan are you looking at? Just to make sure you have the right one. Looking at December 1st, 2021.
Stormwater drainage?
Came over,
Oh, here we go.
The wetlands are found on the municipal lot to all properties, it's not on our property, so we're just.
Right.
So
So
this is October 22nd. That's not what
that's
you
the
want.
last day?
Well, that's what I'm looking at here.
It's, you know what it is, I added a little bit of a language description, but it's essentially the same
plantings
thing,
are
the same
things.
plantings, everything. So, yeah, basically, it's an area that measures about 3,700 feet on that easterly section that we're gonna naturalize. I mean, currently, right now, it's more like, it's just basically scrub dirt, low-lying plants. I mean, it's disturbed, basically. So we're gonna install a big blue stem, little blue stem, switchgrass, stuff that's gonna do well in that kind of area.
Uh-huh. And what is here? Is that just wetlands? It's not water, right?
No, there's no standing water there, no surface water.
There's a couple neighbors here that might have questions.
Brant, do you have any observations?
No, I think the board was spot on. This is a project that does meet all of the setback standards. And, the buffer was established as part of the subdivision review process. I think that the buffer planting plan is something that you could look at if you wanted to. They are only asking to establish native grasses, which I think may be sufficient for this project, but that's up to the board. Other than that, I feel as though the application is in order, and it has gone through a planning board review process. However, I couldn't quite hear Brian's presentation. The shuffling of the papers on the table, as you might know, it does distract the public from hearing the presentations. But I think that I heard enough, and I think I did hear Brian say that the final subdivision approval has been submitted to the Harbor Committee, but I don't recall seeing it in my files. So long as it's in the Harbor Committee files, I think you're good to go, and maybe Liz can speak to that as well.
The planning board didn't return all the maps that we had submitted for signature, so once that gets cleared up, we'll have the copy.
Did you get that, Brant?
Yeah, so it sounds like we do not yet have the final subdivision approval. So I'll defer to Liz as to whether or not the Harbor Committee wants to act on the matter until you have that. But other than that, as I said, it is a conforming project, and the buffer was established as part of the subdivision approval process.
I see a note here in your memorandum of review that there's a health department notice of incomplete application regarding a driveway covenant.
It sounds to me like Brian, again, during his presentation, did say that they did get the covenant for that. So
That
I
got
haven't heard
resolved.
bits. What's that, Brian?
That got resolved with the planning board.
Was it the planning board or the Department of Health, John, that you're
No,
talking
we
about?
did the planning board, and then we filed that with the.
Oh,
Department
yes,
of
you're
Health, so that's
right.
been resolved with the. with the
Okay,
Department of Health.
you got the documentation you needed with the planning board in order to file the,
Correct,
this was the driveway covenant is required for preliminary approval can be issued.
correct.
So does that mean that preliminary approval has been issued by the health department?
I guess you can use that as preliminary approval.
Yeah. We have preliminary, we need the final maps from the planning board to go back to the county, and we haven't got enough maps back yet from the planning board.
So then you don't yet have the approval from the health department.
I have preliminary approval, I don't have final approval, because I need to bring those maps back from the planning board to the county.
Yeah, it's a matter of just following.
It just, I just need the maps back, but
So-
everything has, preliminary approval from the health department has been there. They've approved the covenant in its form and in its, in terms of language.
So Liz, we could make a decision here, subject to receipt of the final health department
And
And the map
And
from
the
the planning
planning.
board.
in the maps, right?
Nothing's
Because
gonna change.
we don't have a permit written for tonight anyway, so
Yeah.
it would probably take care of itself by the next meeting,
Mhm.
so you can.
We could
You
ask
can also
Brant,
make it a condition of approval, yeah,
right,
if
you
you
could
want
ask
to.
Brant to write the permit now, call it getting done.
Well,
I think before we go much farther, we should see if there's any comments from the public.
Thank
This
you.
is
My thoughts.
The first public hearing on this.
yeah. Is there somebody in the audience that would like to speak about this?
Yeah, hello, I would.
Let's start the audience local and then we'll go.
Local,
to-
sure. Go right ahead. Thank you.
She came up earlier.
Yeah.
So I'm Paula Wagner, 74 Glover Street. And I'm concerned about this. I just received notification of this plan via certified mail this week. And I really haven't had a chance to look at the plans and get a good idea for what's going on. My parents, 28 years ago, was involved in the Silly Farm changeover from private property to the Community Preservation Fund. And the wetlands were the major point of contention. They wanted to put a nursing home on the property, they wanted to have multiple dwellings on the property. And I'm concerned about the wetlands and the creatures that live in the wetlands and this project. I don't know why is a wetland permit needed if it complies with all of the wetland buffer zones?
Because any construction within 150 feet of wetlands requires a permit from this board.
Okay, all right.
And that just to make sure that they're being good citizens about respecting the wetlands.
Okay. Second is, are there any variances being given?
They're not asking for any.
Okay, good. And the third question is, how much building up will there be?
It's not us.
No? So,
Who does that? Zoning board?
I mean, the applicant can answer that, but we are looking at proximity to the wetlands.
okay,
We assume that they will go through zoning, planning, ARB if necessary, but I doubt that they're asking for, I don't want to say that. If they're asking for vertical relief, we don't know about that.
right, I got this in like a miniature size. But it doesn't have elevations and the elevations are what I'm concerned about. But, okay, So you
Yeah.
answered my question.
You can,
There's a
do you
gentleman
know,
right here.
Mr. DeSenza?
Yeah, okay.
No variances are being sought. We don't need any vertical variances or height variances. The house is under actually what is permitted in the village for height. And
Okay,
in terms of fill on the property with the IA system,
Yeah.
there's gonna be between 20 and 30 inches of fill. So between 2 feet to 2.5 feet of fill on the property,
okay.
for that.
Throughout the whole or just the
No,
front yard, just where,
It's gonna slope up and.
Yeah.
There's no wall, we're not
right,
dropping it up, and
Do you
that counts toward our heights, we're still
Right.
under our height with all.
right. Do you understand why that's necessary?
Just to keep the distance.
For those septic system,
Uh-huh.
yes, I do,
Okay.
yeah, because next door to where I live, they're raising the house to do that.
Okay,
Well, you know that that area is a flood zone, right?
Yes,
And because we have pictures here.
yes, it's identified as FEMA. By FEMA, it's identified as a flood zone.
Right,
Yes,
right. So how will that structure affect,
it's above the first floor elevation is compliant with the FEMA flood zone, above where the 100-year flood storm is pursuant to FEMA. And there's no basement.
How old, how long have you lived on that street?
since 1985?
1985.
Yeah.
And is your house compliant with all of the setbacks?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because many projects that we see are encumbered by a small lot, a difficult adjacency to the water, et cetera. What's delightful about this application is it's atypical.
yeah,
They are not asking for any variances. So we basically can look at the,
Okay.
this is pretty decent considered what could be going on. Yeah, and we are your agents of concern about the wetlands.
Yeah, good.
And
I'm glad.
I think your neighborhood should feel comfortable in the sense that these folks are not asking for something that's out on the limb.
We're not deviating from the code, so anything that's written in the code.
No, I know, yeah. Can I just read something from the Sag Harbor Express?
Certainly.
sure.
This is from 28 years ago.
Oh.
And let me see. Robert T. Snyder, a Glover Street resident, said if the plan was approved, this was for Ornstein and the nursing home, it would be an irresponsible approval, and I may take legal course. He also mentioned that Michael Arena has made an offer to purchase the property, which he did, and keep it for a park. That didn't happen. No, I mean, it does relate to the wetlands in that the properties are being built up and the wetlands can't drain because of, all the building up. So I just wanted that to be on the record.
So there's a big part of Silly Farm that's owned by the Southampton, the county, and the village.
Correct,
Okay,
yeah. And I just don't want that property to be developed eventually,
what, the other one? Not this one, you mean the other one, yeah.
The other one.
Well, they
You just made a comment that is not particularly accurate relative to this project, which is you're concerned that the wetlands are not going to be able to drain.
Right,
We share that concern. And this project reflects a fair and just approach to that very issue. And if there was an issue, like they put the swimming pool close to the wetlands and whatnot, then we'd be negotiating in a different way. There's always a conflict about the beautiful earth and homo faber, man the maker. We all live in huts of some sort or another. And so we're tasked with balancing that. It's a dynamic. The village is constantly changing, et cetera. You've seen things that some of us have never seen, what it used to be. Moving forward, what we're trying to do is make sure that these residences are not fouling the very thing that is attractive to us here. And I think this is a project that while it might be difficult to see a new house built, you should best.
Another one.
Another one.
Well, but your house was built at some point when the land was more virgin, one might say. So there was probably an objection 50 years ago when it was built. So that domino effect is going to continue throughout our occupation of this village.
Probably about 150 years ago.
Your house?
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
it's an old house.
Oh, good that you're maintaining it.
Oh, I am, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your concern.
So Brant, is Brant still on somewhere?
Yep.
Do you want to just describe the ground wells here and dealing with the drainage so that they're not flooding, water from this site is not flooding the wetlands, et cetera, to maybe speak to her concern about the wetlands being able to drain or how they're going to be impacted?
Okay, I will.
A video of Glover Street on December. I'm Gail Brusowitz Lopinto, and I live on 26 Vitale Avenue. And this is taken December 18th. I could not drive onto Silly Avenue after this storm because number one, the village blocked off the road. And there, as you can see, the depth of the water here, hold on, sorry. There's a video of this going straight through, and I would like to know what the village can provide in terms of drainage on Glover Street, because this is pretty intense, and I worry about my cars being flooded, and I had to drive around to Water Street and come through Redwood to get onto Vitale Avenue because I couldn't drive in my front yard. So will the village be able to provide drainage on Glover Street for this or what?
I think that's a separate issue. I don't think, and Brant can speak to this,
Okay.
whether or not
Because it'll
the
be
development, but the ground wells are supposed to take the water that falls on the site and sink them down to where it goes to groundwater and there's not runoff. I think one of the things that we're all concerned about is stormwater runoff, which has got nitrogen and pollution and everything that goes into our bays and makes them, not uninhabitable, but problematic. So Brant, can you speak to that and how there's been some concern exhibited here for the water that falls on this site and then it doesn't end up flooding the street?
Yes, to the applicant's credit, and this is probably part of the planning board review process, they did provide a fairly thorough assessment of surface water runoff capture on the site as part of this development. So in the file, and the public is always welcome to review the Harbor Committee files, there is a plan prepared by a licensed engineer, Delandro Andrews, that its title is Stormwater Drainage Plan. It's sheet C3. It shows depth to groundwater being approximately 4.5 feet, 4.4 feet, sorry. And that they're using a series of Cultec drainage systems, which are very shallow drainage systems, which require them to be set out linearly across the property to capture all of the runoff from not just the roofs, but also from the driveway areas, the pool, and other impermeable areas on the site. So the applicant has demonstrated that they're able to capture the runoff from the proposed improvements of the site, thereby there it would seemingly benefit the adjacent roadways. Seeing as how there should be no release of surface water runoff from the development onto the roadway or the adjacent properties. That's actually a village requirement.
Right.
That with new developments or substantial renovations, that the property owners must maintain the runoff from their development on their property. So,
Can I ask a question logically though? Where what does that capture of runoff look like? Are there containers for it? Where is it supposed to go?
Those Caltech drainage structures are actually in the ground. So the groundwater gets captured from the roof, from the driveways, or any other impervious surfaces on the property. It gets collected through either leaders and gutters or catch basins, and then it gets distributed into these Caltech drainage structures that are, like I said, subsurface, where it's allowed to be released back into the groundwater naturally with some form of filtration. There's usually a minimum of 2 feet or so of separation between the bottom of the leaching pool and the groundwater. So there is some substrate there to, help to filter the runoff water before it gets distributed back into the groundwater.
In other words, you won't see it. It looks like a lawn, but underneath the lawn, there are containers that are sized by engineers, et cetera. And they've gone the extra 9 yards. But you bring up something in that video. I was on that street that same day, and it's a problem. But I don't know that this applicant's proposal here should be held to the fire for that. I think
It might actually make it better, because all the water that falls onto this property is going to be dealt with here. It's not going to run off onto the street. And the driveway is pervious, which means that anything that falls on it, unless it's like enormous flood, is going to sink down through the driveway. It's not going to sheet off like asphalt. You have to introduce yourself and give me your.
That's a big wide street, and there's a lot of water that's collected. I think that that's something that you could either bring to the trustees to help you find out how, I don't know if it's Dee Yardley, who deals with the storm runoff, but it's a very legitimate concern. But as Mary Ann just said, this application is probably helping that.
Well, there obviously whoever will live there is going to be subject to this problem on the street as well. So that's.
You want to come up here and introduce yourself?
I'm Barbara Maslin, and I have the same issue.
You have to, Barbara, come and speak into the microphone and introduce yourself and give your address.
Barbara Maslin, and I live at Bayview Avenue, 55 Bayview, right on the corner of Long Island Ave. So I've lived across from Silly Farm for 30 years. Bought my house in 93, and so I have the same issue. That's why I brought it up now, as my neighbors only on Long Island Ave, where there's already flooding of the street. And what I didn't see on the survey was any addressing of the service road that runs from the back of this property.
It's a different lot.
So different lot, okay, so when you're gonna develop the second half of the lot,
Correct.
then we address what happens with that road,
That's correct.
because I've been watching them fill that in for 30 years. And there used to be a duck pond there, and now all the water spills into Long Island Avenue and across the pedestrian walkway and into my yard. And like you said, it's impassable with a bad storm, and we all know it's just getting worse.
But
So I was just wondering, maybe with this development, you take the opportunity to transform.
It's part of this, we will, when we get to that.
So when you build this line, you keep that long service road for the trucks and.
That's part of the second, it's a second.
What is your address?
55 Bayview Avenue.
Okay.
Miss Maslin, M-A-S-L-E-N. So right now, we're just worried that it's gonna exacerbate an area that's already flooded. And I think that's the same concern.
well, I think if you believe in science and you can kind of, flip a coin about that, I think that this actually shows that the water that falls directly onto this property is going to stay on this property as opposed to sheeting off and going onto the road. So if anything, and I know that there's like, 40, 50 properties all contributing to that flooding.
Right.
But this, if anything, should be decreasing it to some small extent, because it's not going to contribute runoff.
Right, from that property, but road behind it, everything slopes towards these two roads. It's a triangular corner.
I don't think we can deal with that road
So it's
now.
more of the street and trustee issue.
Brian, what do you think of this, of that problem? I mean, are you cognizant of the storm drain? Is it insufficient? Is it?
On Glover? Yeah, but.
But the video this woman showed,
So
you're aware of
There's a
that.
few things that deal with it. It's the capacity of storm drains on Glover. And it's also all houses that were developed prior to the new codes and regulations where you have to contain all your
Right,
runoff. So if houses were developed in 80s, 90s, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, you'd have to contain your own groundwater. Well, your downspouts don't go to dry wells. You're not compliant to the FEMA, have basements, so they have sump pumps or pumping water out, which, you know, agitates and adds to the water situation. So the codes have evolved to change that, to correct the situation that we saw in the video. This house, you have to contain all the runoff. So all of the leaders and gutters run to downspouts. All of the impervious surfaces have to have equal amounts of catch basins that are underground to slow any kind of runoff. The question about the other lot will come up, and we're dealing with that in engineering now. And when we have that resolved, we'll come before this board, and there'll be a public hearing to weigh in on that, but that's not the one that's before the board now. But we're cognizant of that as good neighbors, and that's getting worked on too, just as this, to comply with all, you know, regulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe there was a gentleman on remote on the
Oh,
screen.
yeah.
Comment.
fellow here.
My name is Adrian Pickering at 30 Redwood. Just kind of listening to some of these concerns here, and I'm an engineer and I have a family, an architect in the family, so I'm aware of how these septic tanks, or it's not septic, but drainage tanks work and how they run off. I've noticed in my almost 30 years being in Sag Harbor here, Glover Street floods now, like impassably floods. And that's new in the last 5 to 7 years, I would say. There's 3 or 4 big houses on the
Yeah.
opposite side of Glover Street that's been built to the current codes with the current drainage systems in place. And they are, my personal opinion is they've made a massive difference in the flooding of Glover Street. That was open, low-lying grass fields. They raised the house up 2 feet so they could have these wells put in, they could put the septic systems in. And I've seen a major difference in Glover Street since those houses were built. I think adding to this, I understand what the engineering is, I understand what the science says, there's math behind the volumes of the water that's put on the square footage in the penetrable areas of the property. This is me living on the street for decades. The other thing I would mention is Silly Farm is, or was a farm. It was a farm for livestock for many years. I've been told that there have been tests done in the past, soil tests and stuff like that. Are there any concerns with this being a farm? If they're gonna dig this up and then put wells in for drainage, disturbing the soil that may have contaminants in it? Are there any concerns with that specifically, being a farm in the past? Now you're gonna disturb soil and sand that is under a wetland and is currently settled in.
That's a good question. I don't know that we have that in the code. If it's a site that's been recognized to be contaminated, that would be a whole different deal.
Who has the ability to
That would have been the
ask if
planning
this
board.
is recognized?
That would
Right.
have been the planning board.
Yeah.
This site is on city water. Hello?
Yes.
It doesn't have a well, correct? It's on city
Yeah,
water?
public water.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very penetrable sand, that lot right now. Well, half of it is. They put about 20 loads of dirt in there in the past couple weeks. That is starting to, you know, they're planning on filling it in already.
Okay, so you're familiar with the site. If it, would it be something that a upsized storm drain would accommodate that problem, would mitigate that problem?
Contamination?
The problem of flooding on the street?
Mhm.
I don't know. I haven't done the math for that specific property. I haven't done the math I haven't seen the plans for the buildings across the street. I'd be interested to see if anybody could show what the flooding was 10 or 15 years ago versus these houses that are less than 10 years old now.
Right,
The street has developed very massively. There was a developer who came in and bought Silly Farm and then a lot across the street and actually then managed to get in and buy some other local houses there. And whoever has been developing these houses, they're selling them off to other people. The street has changed drastically in the last 10 years.
so you bring up a good point, because if it were a low-lying area, you know, water could collect there, and it could collect there for 2 or 3 days while it slowly seeps into the ground.
Right.
And now with structures there, that's not happening, you know,
Right, that
but
storm
even if
drain
they
does
take,
feed- it's very close to the cove, and it can only feed so slowly into the ground. And
Right.
its entire path between the ground and versus the buildings that were on the water for the last 50 years, whatever, there's a field of 200 feet that it used to drain into. And now it can't drain into there because their impenetrable structures are draining on top of where that
Right.
stormwater normally would have been going into the cove. So it's bringing it to the point where it's gonna cost the village or the town of Southampton the need to redesign the storm drain of that street because we're developing with previously undeveloped land.
I think we'd love to talk
We're
about.
obviously going outside the scope of.
Yeah, we would love to talk about this, but we're not
So-
supposed to. I would
Runoff is a
recommend you
big
talk.
issue.
I'm just, would like everybody to notice that this is an ongoing problem, and I don't wanna necessarily drop a community's problem on this project, this specific house, but.
You folks should, the neighborhood, my recommendation is you should really present this to the trustees. And they, I think, have more of an opportunity to deal with this than we do. I'm not trying to kick the can down, but
So something you might be interested in is we are about to study the Havens Beach watershed and really following where all the water is coming from Route 114 down to the beach. And what I'm hoping is that that's going to be a model that we can then take and do the coves, because the coves are the most polluted water in Sag Harbor. But it's a matter of watching where the stormwater is. So that kind of a study, if we get the right kind of model that we can say, all right, this work, let's do that in the coves now, which would be sort of a cooperative effort with Southampton Town along, Long Beach Road and North Haven, but really watching where all the stormwater is coming from and how it can be mitigated before, because I'm not so much concerned, I'm
They've been
concerned.
studying that runoff, that Havens Beach runoff for decades. I remember.
I know, but we're getting better.
We are getting better at every department.
Study's getting
We're
better.
getting better.
Everything. It would be nice if everything could get better as quickly as the developers are getting better at it.
one way that you can deal with that is to go before the trustees. I think the trustees need to hear from the citizens.
Right.
As much as they need to hear from the developers, they need to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
Please,
I
please.
just wanted to put my 2 cents in, knowing what I know about that community. It seems there's some concern with people who actually cannot get to their houses right now.
Yeah.
And those are my 2 cents.
Well, you have to understand, I mean, we're constrained with dealing with the statutes as they
Absolutely.
exist.
Yes.
And when there's a suggestion to go to the village board has the authority to change the statutes and make them stricter if that's necessary. And we're not dismissing, those concerns or saying that that's not the case. But we have to deal with an application based upon the statutes as they are when the application is submitted.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And presenting.
Why are you here?
I got more.
Huh?
I put this meeting on a recurring thing in my calendar because I like to be part of the village, and every once in a while I get time to show up. And
Every once in a while you
I
show up at
honestly had no
Harbor?
idea that this was on the agenda tonight. When I
Okay.
saw it, I was like, interesting, I'd like to see what they're
Well,
gonna do. So
Thank
Stay
you.
interested.
Please stay interested.
I'm trying.
Thank you. Anybody in the public that would,
More people?
You did have somebody on the screen at some
Yeah.
point. I don't know whether they're still there or not, who had a comment.
Adam?
Sorry, yeah, I was muted, yeah. Hi, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Adam Snyder. I am the son of the aforementioned Robert Snyder, who was listed in the article that Paula was reading. I'm a summer kid, except now I'm 57 years old. I've been the neighbor of the Silly Farm since the late 60s. I am now responsible for the building. I don't think the lot of 100 Glover is the one exactly adjacent to my property, which is 82. But obviously the same thing will probably be repeated next door. And as probably with Paula, one of the lowest, if not the lowest property on that street. I have certainly, this 82 is flooded every 10 years since my father bought it in the late 60s. So the house and I'm intimate with the house. I've been in the crawl space. I've been in every square foot of that thing. And I get I think everything you guys spoke about already answered anything that I really had. This is my first meeting, my first encounter with the Harbor Committee or anything official in Sag Harbor. It sounds like there's no variances. This is conforming. It's got dry wells, basically a modern version of an old dry well and French drains into dry wells. It sounds like within your purview, there's nothing here to have a problem with. I think that I'm simply going to add my voice to saying that it is astonishing how much water that area takes, and it's been like that for a long time. And I guess it is getting worse. I can't see how it's not, because simply the square footage of the roofs, which are impermeable, obviously, add to the runoff versus just having sandy soil that would be allowed to like collect a little water and then filter it in over, 2 or 3 days. I know that my small lot is flooded regularly and has, ducks hanging out and geese hanging out all the time. I am also, I'm not going to question the engineer's report specifically, because that's not my area expertise, but I know that 4.5 feet down to come to groundwater sounds like a long distance in terms of my personal experience. So I think that area next door was built up by John over many decades, which is not illegal to add soil to your, right? And you got a tractor and you do whatever you need to do because that was a common sense reaction. But I've been underwater for a long time because of that already. And I realize this petition is not dependent upon my specific circumstance, but sounds like we have some work to do, and I don't know where to go from there, but yeah, so we need to go to the board of, who are we going to?
Trustees.
Board of Trustees.
Right.
You're very articulate, and we really appreciate all of your input, seriously. I can just say that be a citizen advocate, go to the board meetings and speak up. We can only do like what John just mentioned, what's already in the books, but when you go to the trustees, many of them may not have a clue about what's going on over there.
Right.
And they need to hear it. And you guys certainly deserve that.
Deference.
I really encourage you, and I really appreciate all of your concerns.
So one of the other things that's happening now is our overall rainfall might not have changed that much, but what they're finding is there are more intense storms with more rainfall, which is probably easier or more difficult to absorb, rather than a slower rainfall and more rainfall, more rainstorms, more incidents. So that's kind of hard to quantify when you're talking about storm drains and, ground wells. But I think it's something that contributed to the fact that Glover floods the way we saw in that picture, because there's just these intense storms, and it's just hard to stay up with that in terms of drainage.
And in your experience in the Harbor Committee, the storm drains and that thing is not part of what you guys have been discussing for a while as related to the Harbor Committee or the wetlands?
Well, like Marianne said, that one of the biggest problems in this town is what's going on at Havens Beach. And there has been episodic attempts at resolving that. It was a marsh. The resolution was to design something marsh-like, and it was rejected by the neighbors. So it got a straight shot to the bay about the dumbest thing you could spend money on. That's what was built. So the hope is to go back to something more marsh-like, or but it's a problem that is people are trying to address, and that's because it's on the radar. Your street, not so much, but if you show up at the trustees, they're going to know you as Mr. Glover, and that would be a good thing.
Yeah. Oh, I'll show up.
Yeah, I can say that. I mean, there are various stormwater studies that have been done and are ongoing to look at mitigation of some of the stormwater problems. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head whether, you know, Glover Street is one of them at the moment, but I'm just saying that there are, it's not being ignored. The problem is not being ignored. There is an effort by the village to address it. And there've been applications for funding for various projects to address that. But as I say, it's important to make sure that your particular issue, your particular street is being looked at.
Why wouldn't storm drainage come under your purview though, actually? I don't understand that.
Well, we are,
It's much.
It's a village road, the applicants here are.
Their plan is
property owners.
Right.
existing laws.
Right, but if that road, the storm drains are adjacent to waterfront, to the cove and such, why is the preservation of the cove not relative to the storm drains that one of them, the one right at the foot of 71 Glover, goes straight into the cove?
yeah, and that's a big problem, but it's outside our domain.
Yeah, right now, they're limited to this application, which is getting so far beyond.
I was gonna ask you. We
Yeah.
We're just dealing with this property, I do have another reading, I apologize, I'm happy to answer any questions on this property, but.
Legally, we
I'd
can't
love to
require him to put in drains
just
on
move in on
Glover
this
Street.
one.
That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Right.
Everything is limited to their property.
Yeah, it's not outside of the broader jurisdiction of the Harbor Committee, but we have to deal with this particular application at this time.
So should we think about making a motion to approve this application, subject to the receipt of the Department of Health that needs the plans, that it's the
Yeah,
hip
sign
bone?
back
and-
from planning.
When do you anticipate getting this from planning? Is that Matt's?
Within the week?
Matt needs to march over there and pick them up?
Yeah.
Okay, do I hear a motion to get a flame under
I
Matt?
make a motion to approve this application.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you.
good
First, we have
idea.
to make sure there's
Yeah.
there's nobody else who has to make a comment, and then we can decide whether to close the public hearing or to leave it open if there's other information that needs to be submitted.
Thank you, Adam, for your input.
Thank you. Good to meet you.
Mhm, likewise. Anybody else?
I would make a motion to close the public hearing. Do you think we
I'll
want to leave
second.
it open?
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm only seconded unless there's some new material that's gonna be submitted. We're talking about some documents that need to be completed.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's anything new that would be subject to further comments.
Well, it's kind of a yes or no. They either approve it or not, and if they don't approve it, then we don't approve it.
Mhm.
So,
This is a very clean application. Thank you for making it so.
okay, so I will make a motion that we ask Brent Reiner from Nelson Pope to draw up a permit for the meeting on February 1st, subject to receipt and review of the permit from the Health Department and these plans that are held up in planning right now. Is that correct? Is that what my subject twos are?
Yes, yeah.
Guess I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so noted. So Mr. Ivans, you've got your task. And yeah, thank
Good
you.
evening.
Thank you. I just want to say, I feel like the people that spoke up, thank you. I sense your frustration. Please take it to the trustees. You will get better feedback than from us. All right?
Yes, understood.
Okay.
How do you do that? Just call, you can call the village clerk's office and leave a message for any of the trustees.
Okay.
Or ask for which
Or
one
email.
deals with drainage, talk to them about that.
Or you can make a comment at the village board meeting on Tuesday.
On Thursday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
They have a public part of the hearing that you can show up without any preordained, and just speak up, and it can be a series of ongoing conversations.
Can you just tell us in general who is the building department responsible for?
No, it's the Public Works.
Public Works.
So call the clerk's office, or make it through.
It's Bob Plum. He's a liaison from the trustees to the Department of Public Works. Bob Plum.
Trustee Plum.
So as I understand it, this was just one of two houses, they're gonna make two lots, this is just the first one they're getting.
They have made 2 lots.
And then they will come back in a couple of years and want to build the second one, just much coverage. And then they will address the service road that goes.
I have no idea.
Because that service road is right on the eastern border of wetlands.
But as the applicant stated, though, they would come back for that, there'll be a public hearing for that, you'll be able to be heard on that.
And that's like 2 years from now or something?
I don't know, it depends on when they develop the property.
I mean, that's all flooding everywhere.
Be proactive. You know, please be proactive. Go to these meetings and, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're,
Currently, the law shows that what they're doing will make the flooding happen less.
Okay.
In reality, we all know what is happening. The engineering and the laws as written say that what they're doing is capturing more water than.
Right. But I think a lot of it has to do with the intensity of the storms. And that might be where the science needs to play catch up, because if it's, you know, a 2-inch storm in like 2 hours, nothing's gonna keep that from flooding. You know, nothing that we have right now at our disposal.
Well, it used to be able to run for.
Well, it used to be able to run into that low-lying area on Glover, right?
Right.
And then it could seep into groundwater over 2 or 3 days.
Well, yeah, let me just comment, you know, from an environmental standpoint, you do not want it to run into the cove quickly. You want it, whether it's in the street or in a field, you want the sediment to be able to settle out of it before it runs into the cove, for the sake of the water and the
Storm drains
cove.
do say, no dumping drains to waterways. Not that that makes any difference, but it just doesn't show those, we all know that it currently does. The storm.
And there's a lot of sediment in the storm drains.
absolutely.
Well, it's not just sediment, it's like nitrogen, which is a big problem for the bays and coves. And there's also bacterial content. And one of the most effective ways, and then we can like kind of curb this, maybe it's like at the Peconic Estuary Partnership, they talk about rain gardens. And rain gardens, you know, it sounds like hokey and it's like Betty Crocker or something like that, but they are really effective.
I know, in Brooklyn, they started using them.
And we are using them here too. It's sort of slow, but we're moving that way. And they're very effective at capturing water, so it's not on the street, and it's holding it there just long enough for it the nitrogen to be absorbed by the plants, because it's fertilizer. And then the microbes break down the pathogens and heavy metals and God knows what. So that's what I've heard. I don't know.
Can I ask a stupid question? The issue of, again, too, of a container that will capture the sediment, the fact that you're creating that container is displacing land that otherwise would be absorbing all of that water. So the fact that you're creating an impenetrable structure to capture the water, you're displacing natural land with this captured vessel.
Well, we acknowledge that we build houses. And in building houses without adequate runoff that typically would go out onto the street, we've come up with systems such as it is actually a very penetrable membrane. It has holes in it. So the water goes in and the water leaks out.
Slowly.
And so it's pretty well designed, and it's much healthier than you can imagine. French drains and these systems have been around for eons, since the Roman times. So as long as we allow houses to be built, we are constantly upping the engineering. The septic system alone is revolutionary relative to 15 years, 12 years ago. We have to close this meeting and open up.
Executive?
Move into
Thanks for
executive
your
session.
information and patience.
You're quite welcome. Do I hear a motion to close the meeting? And do I have to also say
Will
that?
not close the meeting, just adjourn into executive session.
Okay, to adjourn. I never know
I
that
make a
process.
motion that we adjourn the meeting and go into executive session.
I'll second.
Okay, so noted, we are,
Okay, and then
Um,
this meeting
Yeah.
stop. Okay. So, yeah, okay.